Hello and welcome to Beyond the Badge. I'm your host, Middlesex Sheriff Peter Koutoujian. In past shows, we have focused on issues related to the opioid crisis, municipal government, and criminal justice reform, among others. Today, we're going to spend time discussing education, public safety, and the intersection of both. I'm honored to have as guests two real leaders within Middlesex County. Margie Daniels has worked as a special education teacher, administrator, and clinical social worker. She has also taught at the collegiate level and today serves as the executive director of the Middlesex Partnerships for Youth. Maureen Greulich is a superintendent of the Marlborough Public Schools. Prior to her current post, she has been in the classroom and an administrator positions at Marlborough Public Schools and also in Massachusetts and in New York. I want to thank both of you for joining me today, and I expect we're going to have a great discussion. But first, I want to say thank you because what many people don't realize is that some of the best days happen during Fridays throughout July and August in Middlesex County. We have our graduations for our campers during the summer from our Middlesex Sheriff's Youth Public Safety Academy, where we graduate 200 to 250 students each week. They're always on Fridays. They tend to be hot days, but they also tend to be inspirational days. And I want to say thank you very much for coming out and visiting and watching and seeing what we do and representing your communities as well.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the invitation. Yes. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Did you enjoy them?
Oh, it was very inspiring.
What did you enjoy about it?
I love to see the interaction you had with each student. I love the way you personally spoke to each student as they came up to get their diploma. You could tell it really meant a lot to them. And obviously the interaction with the rest of your wonderful staff was
it's a really
very professional.
Really special, and I do. For those that might be watching, we actually have a graduation ceremony. Everyone comes up, we give them their certificate. They have to give a salute to the officer beside me. What's really fun is I love watching the salutes because some are just regular salutes, some are a little bit like this. Some of them do the Boy Scout salutes, and some of them do it left-handed, and we have to kind of make sure they remember to do it with their right hand, but it's a really wonderful experience.
It was wonderful. I was so impressed by the officers from the community that take part in it as
right.
well. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's right. So
great.
People from Marlborough will be coming out, and we'll do an event in Marlborough on the Wednesday, and it's a way for boys and girls ages 8 through 12 to spend a great week in the summer, but also to learn what their police officers, what their firefighters, what their corrections officers, and what their politicians do for them every day. To sort of re-engage them in a way where they're not thinking about the heroes that the media tries to make them think they should revere.
Exactly.
These are the really people, and along with their families, that care about them and that they should revere. So
it was great.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, you guys are both doing some great work. Could you tell us, Margie, a little bit about the Middlesex Partnerships for Youth and its mission, and then perhaps Dr. Maureen, you can tell us a little bit about Marlborough as well.
Sure. Middlesex Partnerships for Youth is a nonprofit organization, and it began 29 years ago. At the time, Scott Harshbarger was the district attorney, and his vision was to bring together police chiefs, school superintendents, and the DA's office for purposes of communication. They also began to plan trainings and in service, and at the time, I believe it was only 6 or 8 communities that were participating. But over the years, through various district attorneys, the program grew, and at this point, we have every public school district in the 54
cities and towns. That's an awful lot.
Including the Voc schools, and now we have charter schools, private schools.
That's great.
So it's really grown. Our mission is prevention and intervention in matters of health and safety for youth.
That's great. So you're kind of connecting, I mean, you'd say it's law enforcement, but it's really not law enforcement. It's people that care about the communities with the educators themselves and bringing information directly to them to empower them to be able to help their own students as well.
Well, we have the word partnerships in our title, and we're all about partnerships and collaboration. And we work with many entities. Certainly law enforcement is a very important stakeholder in what we do, as are our wonderful superintendents. Such a pleasure to be here today with someone who's such a leader in prevention efforts.
Thank you, Margie.
Yeah, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on in Marlborough right now, too?
Marlborough is on fire, as we like to say. Marlborough is a growingly diverse community. We are about 4,600 students. Our EL population, our English learners, is about 23%.
Wow.
Just to put it in perspective, in 2011 it was 11%.
Wow.
So we have more than doubled. Our low income is 58%. It used to be in 2011 38%. So we appreciate very much the partnership with organizations such as Margie's, because none of us can go this alone.
That's right.
And the needs of our students have really increased exponentially. You're going to hear a lot about social emotional learning, I think, today from us. I know it's been the theme of recent Superintendent Institutes and conferences, because if the student is not sitting in front of the teacher ready to learn for whatever reason, we need to help with that. And that's where Margie's organization comes in, and others as well. So we are grateful for the opportunity to be here and talk about what has really happened in education recently.
Well, we
It
know
shifted.
that education has evolved, and you as a leader in Marlborough have really brought a lot of this change as needed, quite honestly, to Marlborough, using technology and the social and emotional learning. Could you, I remember when I was a legislator, we spoke a lot about social emotional learning and how our children were developing emotionally. We were so focused on the academics, we were forgetting about them as the child, really, and especially with so many challenges maybe that might be occurring at home. We tend to forget that that's what will make a good student and a good human being as well. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
So I'll start with 3 years ago, we had everyone in our district trained from the Safe Schools Initiative, Jeff Perotti from the Department of Education, on transgender. We had some students who were transitioning coming into kindergarten, and our staff really knew nothing about this. So we started training folks in that building, and then at the time I was a Title IX coordinator, I said we need to do this for everyone. So there's one piece of training our teachers about the microaggressions that can take place every day that impede the student's success academically.
Microaggressions, what do you mean by that? That's a
I'm sorry, it's a bit of a technical
great term.
It's a great term. We like to look at the other side of it, microaffirmations, using the correct pronoun, and not being afraid if you make a mistake, and not avoiding the issue. If someone is going from a he to a she, making sure that those, and other such issues. We also have seen through surveys we've taken that the students are more prone to self-injurious harm and even suicide. So we've had all of our counselors trained in DBT, which is another acronym. I'll explain. It's dialectical behavior therapy. So we are making sure that our counselors are equipped. We send them out to workshops, to any conference that we can, to make sure that they are aware of the challenges. Our EL population is very different than the population that, say, my grandparents, came from Poland and from Germany, and we need to be careful to not make the equivocal statement about the immigrant populations. These students that are coming to us, a lot of them are students with interrupted limited formal education. So they are functionally illiterate, some of them in their own language. And we have a very short runway to work with them and get them up to speed. So, the days are gone where I, as a Latin teacher, would just expect that all of the students in my class come prepared, ready to learn, and I'm going to teach it and it doesn't matter and we're going to move on. We need to take care of that whole child and wonder what's going on behind.
Man, education has really evolved a lot, hasn't it?
It has.
Well, as necessary, really, corrections has evolved in the same way. We're dealing more and more with mental health and with substance use disorders, and that it's not your father's corrections anymore either. We have to change it, or otherwise we're not just a jail anymore.
Absolutely.
We need to change. If we don't change, then we're not doing our job, really. Our job has changed.
And it's not your father's curriculum anymore either, because I can remember, and my children as well, lugging the big book bag with all of the textbooks, and now they have a Chromebook. With an online component, and most of the work they do is based off of technology. So while technology has helped us bring the world to the fingertips of the students, we also need to be careful about digital citizenship as well. So this is a component that we had never thought about in the past. How do we impress upon these students whatever you do online leaves not only a digital footprint, but a digital tattoo? So,
that's right. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, in education now, I mean, I get so many emails and updates from the schools that I feel overwhelmed, even as a parent. So it is something that is changing. Margie, could you tell us a little bit about the Partnerships for Youth? I know that you do a lot on conferences and training. I think I'm going to participate in one upcoming in this fall,
you
which I'm really excited about. This is my first time able to participate in a conference like this. So I'm really excited about this, quite honestly. I've always coveted the opportunity to do so, and I'm really excited to do it. So tell us a little bit about what you do, the conferences you put together, and who you bring in order to educate and inform.
Okay. First of all, I would just comment that the needs are so diverse in a county this size. Again,
Yes, right.
it's a
54
very
cities and towns,
Sure.
urban centers, many suburban and affluent, and then also some rural centers too. We forget that this is a county that really mimics the entire country, really.
Exactly. So every year, at the end of the year, we talk to our stakeholders and get a sense of what people are feeling that they would like to hear more about in the coming year. Because there's so many topics in prevention, it's often hard to narrow it down to what we feel will be the most pertinent to schools and police, which are our primary stakeholders. And this coming year, we're really focusing on stress and anxiety. We had started a mindfulness campaign last year to really work with schools and law enforcement to bring mindfulness into communities, which we feel has been so important and has really resonated. Just a quickie, we had Dan Harris last year, who's
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
Yeah.
I've seen his presentation. He makes it. I guess it's really meditation that he does, right? But he makes it so simple and easy that even I said that I could try that. That seems like it would work for me too.
I love it because his book is 10% Happier, and
Right.
how these practices have made him 10%
Right.
happier.
It's really just almost breathing exercises and
Some of it, and
Yeah.
just slowing down
Right.
and stopping and thinking and
Something I need to go to.
right.
Sounds
right.
good.
Yes, we all
becoming
need.
more present, like you say about students, have to be present
Sure.
to be able to learn.
Right.
So we're continuing the mindfulness this year, and also we're doing a big mental health conference on anxiety, and we're looking at anxiety from a few different vantage points. We have Dr. Susan Swick, who is the psychiatric head of Newton Wellesley Hospital for Children and Adolescents, speaking in general about anxiety and how pervasive it is in our
right.
society with
Yep.
students. And then we're doing a segment about students. It's going to be called Lives in Limbo. We have a professor from Harvard, Dr. Roberto Gonzalez, who's talking about the challenges of just what you were talking about immigrant students, students now who may be fearful of deportation, students who may have food insecurity or coming from different situations which can be interfering with learning.
Food insecurity is just the fact that they don't know when their next meal is coming or what it's going to be or if it's going to be enough and how hungry they're going to be.
And maybe where they're going to be living. Maybe
right,
now we're
yeah.
living in Marlborough, and maybe 3 weeks later we've moved into Hudson. So these types of things that kids have on their plate, and we have to be aware of them and help them to handle these things before they're really available to be able to learn. And then the second component is going to be about students who are under stress because of college, getting into college, getting good grades, making athletic teams, that type of thing. And we have a team from the Winchester Public Schools coming. Superintendent Judith Evans, along with her health and wellness coordinator, is going to be heading up that segment. So we're really focusing quite a bit on stress and anxiety because people have spoken so much about that. Another piece, and again, our mental health series are our best attended events.
I was going to ask you, because mental health is something that we're engaging with at a much higher level in our shop. I mean, in our correctional facility, 46% had a history of mental health issues, and about a third are being treated for it. We're the largest mental health treatment facility in the county, and the 3 largest in the country are all jails, Rikers, LA, and Cook County jails, basically. So this is something that is manifesting itself into our hospitals, into our correctional facilities, and manifesting itself, I'm sure, in our schools. So tell us what you're doing on the mental health aspects.
Yeah, and just to go back to the origins of Middlesex Partnerships for Youth, even when I came aboard 10 years ago as executive director, we were probably a little more focused in on the safety aspect. We still are. We're doing a big conference in early October on terrorism. However, more and more our slant has been to the social and emotional learning because of the needs that everyone is telling us are just paramount in their different settings. So we have a mental health series. We do 3 conferences every fall, and we do another 3 every spring. And those are by far our best attended events. We have psychologists, social workers, school adjustment counselors, guidance counselors, nurses, school administrators, teachers. We have a wide variety of people who come to hear about a variety of different topics.
And then they can take it right back into their school systems and right back to their own parents in their communities as well.
Right. I'll jump on the school anxiety. You know, when it heightens to a point, Margie, the students don't even want to come into the school building. And I've never seen that before, and we've seen such an abundance of it recently. and then truancy becomes an issue, and loss of credit, and then it spirals. So I know our attendance officer is really looking forward to coming to the conference about attendance and how to deal with some of these issues.
We do an attendance summit first thing every fall. It's always our first conference because
So important.
it's important to get ahead of these issues.
It is.
If a student is starting to miss, let's say a day even every week in September and into early October, you're going to have a situation. And obviously you can't learn if you're not there in school to
Right.
learn.
Right.
But I couldn't agree with you more that the mental health issues are really a large part of what we're talking about now. We have Dr. Leah Kelly as part of our team now about attendance, who's the head of the court clinic in Massachusetts, who do wonderful evaluations. And we've so appreciated Dr. Kelly's input about this, because certainly the mental health piece of attendance and truancy
huge.
is really where it's
It
at.
is huge.
And
It's
to me,
huge.
it shows just the commitment that you're both making, but also so many schools in Massachusetts and Middlesex County are making, because it's easy when someone's not showing up. It's easier because usually they're not engaging in the classroom. They may or may not be disruptive, but they're not engaging that way. It's easier if they just don't show up sometimes for the teacher, because then you don't just have to ignore them in front of you, right? And this is what I think probably happened for many years, and now we're understanding we got to get that child back in there. I mean, and again, as a life of fulfillment or unfulfillment evolves, it's that truancy, it's the failure of attendance, the failure in educational opportunities that becomes that indicator about where you're going to end up. And they're places not of fulfillment, and they can be as bad as being in a place of incarceration like mine. This is a major indicator for us. But it can be just, going through life, but never really either earning the type of money that you need to live on, and having that insecurity of being paycheck to paycheck for your entire life. And so many other failures that people think, it's just this is the life they chose. They don't choose this life, and it's not a fulfilling life. I mean, I speak with guys in my jail all the time. They're not fulfilled. People think, they don't mind coming to that. They do mind coming to the jail. When they leave, they don't want to come to the jail. But unfortunately, we haven't given them the tools to be able to stay out of our systems of criminal justice, and that's the real tragedy and the travesty of what's going on in our systems right now.
Well, it's the socialization as well. We have online programs, and they can take classes and, quote, earn credits at home. But what are they missing of the experience? And that's what I worry about. A lot of our youth are sitting behind a laptop or a screen all day long.
Right.
And this is not going to bode well in the future, I don't think, for the socialization of this generation.
And so, Maureen, could you tell us a little bit, like, we know that Margie has spoken about the fact that this is what's being asked, but I'm sure that you have been involved, I know you've been involved with the partnerships for youth as well. What is it that you've been kind of driving them to address and to say, this is what's going on in my systems?
So this is my second year as a superintendent. Last year I was getting my feet on the ground. I look forward to a conversation we're having on Friday with some of the other superintendents and chiefs looking for a grant from the Cummings Foundation. We were just talking about it in the parking lot before we came in. And again, the appreciation from the ranks, my colleagues, because again, we cannot do this alone, and we don't always have the funding. Marlborough's very lucky. We have a wonderfully supportive city council and mayor, but and we've kept our budget in line. But that, these are the extras that we need. These are the avenues that we need to look at, starting early, looking at social emotional learning and mental health issues and the diverse needs of so many of our students. However, within that group that are coming on Friday, there's a diversity in that group as well. So how to hit that sweet spot where there's something that we can all agree on that is the biggest need.
Right, and a lot of times you find it's not really rocket science too. It's something fairly simple, and it's something that sometimes doesn't cost that much more money. You find in public sector, sometimes sometimes they do cost money, but sometimes they don't cost much money.
Indeed.
You can actually make some real gains in that.
You can.
And I'm sure you're seeing it too, Maureen, in the Marlborough school system. But we've seen it in Middlesex County. The opioid problem has been a major consideration. We have been we've had in Middlesex County, we're the highest number of opioid-related deaths in the state. We're by dint of our size as well as part of the reason. Per capita, we're not the highest, but we have the most. Recently, we've been eclipsed. Sadly, I was brought down to Columbus, Ohio, with the National Institute of Corrections to show them a program we're running, because We're seeing some benefits on the programs we're doing in Middlesex County and the Sheriff's Office on the opioid problem. This has got to be something that we need to be addressing in the schools at an earlier point.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that's something you're
Absolutely.
concerned
And
about.
I never would have thought this is something under the aegis of a superintendent, but it is, because we need to educate the youth, and we need to do it earlier and earlier. Just last week, I think it was the week before, August 31st, there were 2,107 purple flags on the lawn of our Walker Building in downtown Marlborough, each one representing a life lost in 2016 to this horrible opioid crisis.
That's across the state, not
across
just in
the state.
Marlborough,
No,
right?
not just in Marlborough, in the Commonwealth, indeed. So last year we brought in James Wahlberg, brother of Mark Wahlberg, of course, and he produced a documentary called If Only. And I shouldn't say it's a documentary. It's not a didactic film, don't do drugs. It's a story. And his son actually is the star in it. Very poignant at the end. The families hold up pictures of their loved ones that they've lost to this crisis. And he did a presentation for 7th and 8th graders, and then one for 9th graders, and then in the evening he did a community forum for about 350 folks. It was so incredibly powerful, but we need to bring that even lower into the grades to teach kids about what's in their grandparents' medicine chest,
Right, right.
and don't, shiny pills, don't take them, and make sure you understand, all of the ramifications of this at a much earlier age. We applied and received, gratefully, a grant from the Attorney General's office, an opioid grant last spring. The Attorney General actually came, and we had a roundtable discussion with some of our administrators and some students. You can't forget the student voice in there.
Right.
And with that funding, we are purchasing a new life skills program that we're infusing into our wellness curriculum from 4th to 8th grade.
Right.
And also a parent component, parent training, and a licensed drug and alcohol counselor.
Yep. And we're actually taking from Marlborough, because we have a series called Monday Moments, where we bring someone from the outside coming in to speak to the recovery community. We usually have about 80 of our constituents there. And this coming shortly, we're actually going to have Ms. Leonard.
Kathy Leonard.
Kathy, that came out, the
She's
sister
wonderful.
of former Chief Mark Leonard.
Former Chief Mark Leonard.
And I met her, and she had a very powerful story to tell, so we're bringing her in.
She does.
Which is part of,
Yep.
you can't, jails are not a fortress on a hill. You need to bring the community in to speak with them, to show the community cares and to make that difference. And I know she's going to make that
So
difference as well.
Kathy is the chair of our Substance Use Prevention Coalition.
Right.
And we meet once a month. We have a meeting this afternoon at City Hall at 5:30, and she's really the driving force in our collective communities, Hudson Marlborough. Using her personal tragedy as a lightning rod for educating adults and students alike.
Yeah.
She's
That's
an
the story you have to
amazing,
tell, because there are people that are,
woman.
I mean, these people are not those people, they're people, there are people, there are family members, there are
Correct.
Children, our brothers and sisters, our
Correct.
moms and dads,
Correct.
our neighbors.
Yes.
So it's sad, and I know that the partnerships are doing a lot of work on this issue. I remember attending a conference, I think, with Chris Herron,
Yes.
a little while ago, that spoke very powerfully about opioids. What else are you guys doing? Some more things coming up on that, and I know that you're dealing with the issue of marijuana, which is something that we have to be very thoughtful about, right? Because
Absolutely.
it is a stage up, whether you call it a gateway or not. The fact is that those that use marijuana are more likely to use the other drugs, and then addiction can happen thereafter. So I know you're about to do something on marijuana, correct?
On marijuana, and it came out of a conference. Again, I've mentioned Susan Swick, who's the head of the adolescent and child psychiatry at Newton Wellesley Hospital. I had a conversation with Susan about how confusing she feels it is to students about marijuana, that they're
agree.
getting such mixed
Mixed
messages about it.
Absolutely.
And there's so many different ways of looking at the situation. It's not just one stream feeding this river that we have going on with marijuana. So we have a conference coming up that we call up Conversations About Marijuana, because we have a variety of different people coming in from different points of view. We have a Dr. Matt Madras, who is an expert in more the psychopharmacology of what marijuana actually does to the developing adolescent brain. We're also bringing in Senator Jason Lewis to talk about some aspects of the law We have Greg Nato, who's a sergeant with the state police, to talk about the realities of what they're finding on the streets. Because the thing that a lot of people aren't realizing is that some of the marijuana now is being laced with fentanyl.
Right, that's right.
It's really
or other chemicals, just chemicals alone. It's not organic.
Exactly.
Let's face it.
So we have a representative from the state police who's coming in with the realities of what they're finding on the streets, and this is not in New York City or Chicago or LA. This is right here in Middlesex County. And then lastly, we have an attorney, Michael Joyce, who is going to talk about the ramifications in school when students are caught with marijuana. Of course, a lot of students think it's legal, meaning it's okay to have it on school grounds.
It's absolutely not.
Right.
So there's
You're right.
Dispel that right now.
This is the misinformation that's out there. People think it's okay now. It's all legal. We can smoke it. Never even understanding there's even an age issue there too, an age limit on the whole issue too.
Never mind school policy.
Right.
And the thing that I think some parents understand, I'm probably showing my age when I say this, is the marijuana that the kids are smoking now is not the marijuana that people smoked in the 60s.
Well, it's not just smoking, those gummies.
Yeah, the
We
gummies,
found some gummies in a backpack.
Right.
Yeah, they look like little vitamins.
And the cognitive impact, I mean, I've seen many studies, the cognitive impact on youth, and then the marijuana dependency on youth is just something to be concerned about.
It is.
Listen, it's become legalized. We have to understand this, but we have to be cautious about how we do this. And the cognitive damage, and then I didn't even know just the high levels of marijuana drug dependency there are out there. So it's not like this does have some addiction and dependency issues going on. And among a youth, it is a very high driver of dependency. Marijuana alone. People think it's not addictive, it's not a problem. It tends to be.
It's a series of choices you make along the way.
Right.
And that's what leads to the opioid addiction. So those decisions you make early with marijuana lead to often.
Right.
We know this.
And that's why the education for young children is so important, because it's really about what you're putting in your body and knowing what you're putting in your body and not putting anything in your body that's going to lead to.
They may not be getting that at home nowadays quite as much. You know, I think it is about choices. And when I bring out, and maybe Margie, the partnerships, we could speak about this, I bring out sometimes young men that are incarcerated with me, that their stories are always the same. They were good students. They were good. They had good grades. They were part of a team. They were captain of good athletes. They had dreams of going to college or entering the military. They were shiny, happy students. And then in so many of these cases where they are incarcerated, they started, whether it's smoking cigarettes, smoking marijuana, starting to drink during the weekends. Then it becomes during the week. Then they drop off the team. Their grades suffer. They drop off the team. They maybe drop out of school. They're working just a grinder of a job, and eventually they get into some terrible. But when I try to bring them out, I try to make sure people understand it's not the choice they made on the one night where they ended up incarcerated, whether they killed their best friend driving their car or something like that. It's the choices they made to that point that are really the problem there. So I'm sure that's what you see as well.
Absolutely.
It's about choice. So
I have one other thing I'd like to talk about, and that's teen dating relationships. Because we've done a lot of work about teen dating relationships, and we had done a series of 5 videos that's up on our website that anybody can pull off. And what I loved about it is that they were written by students and performed also by students. Filming them was one of the most fun I think I've ever had in this position.
So, and I know we're running out of time, but I think that's really important. Thank you for bringing. As you know, I've been the co-chairman of the White Ribbon Campaign the last couple of years, and I've been very frustrated by the fact that we speak about domestic violence and men becoming involved to say it's not okay, and we should be speaking to youth. But in the high schools, firstly, it's hard enough to get into the high schools. We should really be getting into the junior high schools where we're teaching healthy relationships, because if they learn an unhealthy relationship, that's what they seek out for the rest of their lives, and that's where the damage is done. So I really applaud. I ask people to go check out the website to take a look at some of those videos, and they are very powerful. I've seen them. They make very emotional, very very visceral.
Could never have been done by adults the way the kids did
and they don't carry the same weight either.
Yeah, but we have a big conference coming up featuring Jackson Katz, who's a national expert on domestic violence. The sheriff will be speaking at that conference about the White Ribbon Campaign, which we're very excited about.
I'm really excited about that too. It's so great to be part of this. Well,
thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I want to thank my guests, Margie Daniels and Maureen Greulich, to be here and have this great discussion. We could go on for quite a while, longer. And thanks to all of you for joining us. I hope that you'll tune back in for future episodes. But until then, please remember that life is full of choices. As we just said, please make good ones.